That's gotta be yeah, so the walls see people. Oh, you're right. So if you serve alcohol, it's gotta be. But then there's it's really weird roles because in the summer they just have a patio. That's it's very uneven. What's that?
And the mural there?
I knew it.
Really beautiful.
So the one, the pollinator.
It's like on that other side, they're like driving like away from City Hall.
I'm here to
Like
go.
a wall right here.
Hey, but I can't
I have another slide up here.
Let me show you.
It's all. Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. We're going to start with a guest of Mr. Hawkins tonight. He was good enough to come to Conway a couple of weeks ago, and we didn't have time. So raise your hand. All right. Not you, Mark. Anyway,
He's right behind Mark.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a name, Mr. Hawkins?
Council, this is going to be Mr. John Morrow from Parex, USA. And he wants to speak to us tonight about EFS because there's some differing of opinions on that. And John, if you'd like to go ahead and.
Mr. Morrow, we're giving you 30 minutes, so you were
Thank
you were kind enough to come back.
No, I appreciate that. Appreciate your time. I'm going to take an hour-long presentation, put in about 10 minutes, though, so I give some other gentlemen here that's with us time to speak as well. So I'm going to get this done as quickly as I can. Ask questions throughout it. Hope I'll get to those. But thanks for having me. First of all, I'm with Parex USA. We're a manufacturer of EIFS, division of Sika worldwide. Produce EIFS in 28 countries, at least, with that currently and growing. So large manufacturer here. So I'm here to do a little EIFS 101. So we'll get started. One thing I wanted to first of all show you guys was some images of EIFS. A lot of times we drive around and don't really realize or understand what we're looking at is an actual EIFS system. So I'm going to show you a few pictures, and then I'm going to go in and show you exactly what an EIFS is. You know, what makes up an EIFS system. So a lot of these, I'm going to show you are 100% EIFS, and you may or may not have recognized it, from the BMWs to casinos to even the stone systems I'm going to show you are also EIFS. This actually is in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Choctaw Cultural Center in Oklahoma. Everything you see there is an EIFS system. You can do quite a bit of designs, very creative. You'd be very creative with the systems and the finishes. That's that same system showing how it can flow and do different shapes. This is actually the Doubletree, Hot Springs, Arkansas. Everything you see there on that side of the building is EIFS. The designs, the trees is an EIFS system. Even the high rise over to your right, the very far side of it, the shiny side, is a metallic reflective coating eave system on that building. And we got some retro styles over there. Osage Casino in in Oklahoma. Even the Porta Cashier you're looking at there is eaves. This building is 100% eaves along with the hotel. Kind of another view of it during the daytime. Hard Rock Casino in Oklahoma, there in Tulsa area, is 100% eaves. This is a wood grain they'd started to do. This is actually during a remodeling. They remodeled the back section after this photo was taken. Even the stone you're looking at here in the brick is part of an eaves system. It's called our Masonry Veneer system. This is just kind of show some creative shapes that can be done with eaves that you can't do with other materials. Even this photo here, everything you're looking at is 100% eaves system to look like stone and concrete. There's more of a traditional look that you see a lot now. One would think this is part brick, part eaves. It's actually 100% eaves system, and I'll explain that later with the different stone and thin brick systems that we have over our foam. And this is actually eaves, even though it looks like a limestone church. It's an eaves system. Residential applications referring to multifamily. Even the cornice here is an eaves system. So what is eaves? Eaves is an exterior finish system, just kind of like, sounds like it was developed in Europe after World War II to help rebuild Europe. It's been in the U.S. market for 50 plus years, and billions of square feet have been installed in America alone. It's a 108 billion worldwide market in 2023. It dominates Florida, Texas, California, New Mexico, even Oklahoma. And I see a lot of eaves even here in Conway on most of the buildings. I'd say 80% of the buildings I've seen have eaves on it in one way or another, including the top of this building. So eaves, this is a cutaway drawing of an eaves system. Start off with, of course, your studs, usually steel framing, a dense glass, a type of sheathing that goes on that for an exterior sheathing. And this is where our system begins. It begins with the weather protective barrier, liquid applied, which is definitely the way to go versus any kind of sheet good. I'd put it behind brick, I'd put it behind metal panels. Any facade you're gonna put on, I would use a liquid applied moisture barrier. It performs much better than sheet goods. Then we adhesively apply our foam, our EPS foam, which creates a natural drainage plane. That way, the moisture gets in there, it has a way back out. And then we put on a reinforcing mesh, kind of like you would rebar in concrete, a Portland-based base coat, and the finish is a polymer modified marble aggregate. So it's crushed marble is the actual finish that's on the exterior of the building, basically mixed in a bunch of coatings, liquid applied polymer coatings that's troweled on. So some benefits of eaves: it's energy efficient. It's a CI product. I'm sure that buzzword hopefully has been going around quite a bit. CI means it's continuous insulation on the exterior of a building. There's no thermal short circuits from the studs or anything else. It's about 40% more efficient than putting bad insulation in because of the thermal shorting and gaps you'd have in it. Its R value is 4 per inch. Most buildings have 2 inches probably of foam put on it, continuous around it. Extremely flexible materials. If the building moves, it doesn't typically cause a problem. It doesn't crack. You don't have to put expansion joints in it. And it's very flexible when it comes to design, which I'll get into quite a bit of that. And very low maintenance. Be pressure washed. No really need to repaint because the actual color itself is a 1/16 of an inch thick with the aggregate. It's all mixed in. Energy codes. U.S. Department of Energy mandated all states meets ASHRAE 90.1 in 2010. Eaves was the first to be able to meet these expectations. It's very energy efficient, approximately 84% more efficient, the best performing cladding. That's including your standard brick systems. Oak Ridge National Laboratory, supported by the Department of Energy, validates that eaves is a best performing cladding. It reduces the carbon footprint significantly over a brick or cementitious type structure. Uh, It's a bucket of finish and foam and base coats. It doesn't take up a lot of semis to travel, and doesn't take, during the actual manufacturing of it, very low carbon footprint. It's very durable. It meets building codes and regulations in hurricane-prone regions. For instance, Miami-Dade County building code is probably the most stringent building code in the country, and it has passed all their hurricane testing. That's large missile impacts, air infiltration, static air pressure, water resistance, and wind pressure. FEMA even recognizes it as and recommends it for protecting property from high winds. For instance, right here in Little Rock, we just got finished doing the Air Force Base Visiting Center. The Corps of Engineers designed this building with a blast standoff level to protect the occupants. You guys familiar with the Corps of Engineers? Military-based engineers for all their structures, the most stringent specifications out there. Working with these guys is very, very difficult because they know what they want. They have very high standards. EIFS meets most of all their buildings. We're doing another project for them in Louisiana at this time. This particular building is 90% EIFS on the exterior. So we're worried about durability. The Corps of Engineers has done their testing. Where is EIFS used? Mainly commercial. Resorts, casinos, hotels, motels, shopping centers, all your basic commercial properties. A lot of schools in Oklahoma and Kansas I know use EIFS system. And it's actually very few multifamily and single family residents use actual EIFS systems. Traditional wraps have some issues. Ours uses a liquid applied. I'm not going to go into a lot of that. Again, I know we're short on time. Here's a few more images of the creativity of EIFS. So EIFS isn't just one blank wall that's brown. You can do just about anything with it. Wood grains. A lot of times you'll see wood grain on a building thinking that it's actual wood grain tile. It's an EIFS system. As you see here, both of these are actual EIFS systems. We can do old world looks, the granites, the sandstones, any kind of block you'd want. This is all designed and made on the wall. Granite. A lot of times we're looking at a building and think there's granite around the windows. It's not. It's EIFS. Smooth panels. We can imitate metal panels. All the BMWs have this look, for instance. Here's another image of a Jaguar Land Rover dealership that uses our smooth EIFS instead of metal panels. And this building on the right, I'm not sure where it's at, but all the copper is an EIFS system. We have metallic finishes and different textures. You can do all kinds of designs, build outs. This is a quick side view showing how we do those reveals. They're not joints that go all the way through. They're just cut in the foam itself and base coated and meshed. The last thing I was going to show you guys is our masonry veneer system. Everything you're looking at here, even though it looks like brick, it is an EIFS system with our veneer over it. So you get the full moisture protection, get the full drainage, you can eliminate a lot of the flashing, and first of all, you get the most efficiency out of the building, the CI. And again, that on the left, shows our EIFS system with just stone adhered to the system itself. You can do natural stones, granites, marbles, manufactured stone, thin bricks, tiles to get any kind of any look you want on an EIFS system. Just some more photos and designs that one would think is brick, but it's actually an EIFS system. For instance, this cornice could not be done with real brick. That's over foam and thin brick to get that design. Get the multi-facade look. So that's an hour-long presentation I might do in 10 minutes. So I'm gonna let some of the other guys here that are working with the EIFS in the area to come talk to you.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Are there different levels of costs for eaves, like the granite look versus a smooth?
Great question.
Or-
And there's one thing I actually didn't mention as well. So yes, there's different costs because yes, a granite look is going to cost more than a standard look. Those designs are going to cost more to construct and install. So absolutely, there's different levels, and there's different levels of impact. A standard mesh is you can has a standard impact resistance. We go all the way up to what we call high impact resistance, where I can take a 4-pound sledgehammer over the system, drop it, and it would barely make a mark on it. You can put a brick on the ground, drop the same thing, the brick shatters. So there's different impact levels too, and those impact levels do cost more. So if you want some more impact level down low, where it does get some more abuse, you can do that. Up high, where it's not getting any abuse, you can lower the impact resistance, because yes, each one of those levels has a higher cost to it.
One more
Any other
question.
questions?
So is there a best practices for installing it? Because I think that's also part of
Sure,
what
absolutely.
makes it work.
Yeah, just like any facade, it's got to be installed correctly. And it takes a skilled contractor to do so. Luckily, there's some good ones here in Arkansas that I work very closely with. Myself being right over here in Tulsa, I come here quite a bit to work on the projects with them, just like the Air Force Base. So yes, third-party inspectors are on a lot of these projects, so they come out and inspect the process to make sure it's being done right.
How about fire properties, fire spread?
Yeah, it's actually the finish and sew. It meets all the fire testing. It has to be on any building. It meets combustible, non-combustible. I'm not good at all my ASTMs, and I could get you all that stuff, but 100% meets all the specifications for fire. Otherwise, yeah, we couldn't be doing on the buildings. We do full high rises, everything, every casino. Energy codes, is that what you wanted? Okay. Thank you.
I'm Ronnie Robertson, Managing Director with Malley Construction Company here in Conway. 49 years of commercial construction. And I guess the first project I did in Arkansas with EFS was in 1983 on Rodney Parham in Little Rock. Drove by there last week. It still looks like it did in '83. So it holds up pretty good. I've done probably 200 projects in the state with EFS, from 50% to 100%. And I'll have to say, over the years, it has improved. When I started putting it on, they've made a lot of changes. But, you know, end result is they're using it everywhere now. Cold climates to hot climates, and like you said, in the hurricane areas. And that had a lot to do with what we were trying to do with our project over here, was actually bring in some different look. I know when we first started and met with the city, what we were talking about doing, there were some problems with how we were wanting to do our building, so James suggested that we bring it into a PUD, because that, according to the PUD rules, it relaxes some of what's required. So we did do that. But then after we got into the PUD and got ready to do our next building, we discovered that not only did we not have all the original rules, we had less. We were able to cut down from 51% brick, which was great, and we were allowed to do 25% brick, but then that's all we could do was brick. The hardy board and several other items that are considered masonry, we couldn't do anymore. We could only do brick. So that made it a little more difficult, because we were trying to design a lot of the building around hardy board, because it was considered masonry in Conway. So we've had to go back and redesign again. So hopefully shortly we'll have a new set of drawings again. I just feel like that, you know, through all this process, you know, I had a person ask me, and I said, you know, there's all kinds of great products out there. I've probably anything these guys named last week, I've done several buildings in them. And they're all good. If they're installed correctly, they're all good. But you can have bad masonry just like you can bad ephes or anything else if it's not put on correctly. But through the process of this, there was a person asked me, he said, you know, y'all are having a lot of trouble out there trying to get going. Do you feel like the city of Conway is somehow, you know, treating y'all different than everyone else? And I said, well, my feeling would be when I drive around Conway and look at other buildings that's being built right now and in the last 5 years, yes, I do feel like they're treating me differently. And the owner, because what I'm seeing, because I can, believe it or not, I can actually read the ordinance. I've built them all over the country. I find buildings all over town that don't match what you asked for any more than mine did. And for other people to be able to go ahead and build theirs, I've got to feel like there's something, if I get turned down and another person doesn't get turned down, you know, it's, you know, not to use the word discrimination against me or the owner, but we got to feel like we're not getting a fair shake. So, you know, I think there's a lot of good products out there, and there's a lot of them we'd like to use too, other than just ephes. But I don't feel like with the regulations that we're having to work under now with the PUD, there's not a lot of stuff open to us. And y'all have a copy of the PUD that we were issued, and you have a copy of the city ordinance that names all these products that everybody else can use. And I did that on purpose. So everything I've given you is a document that's been printed and handed out. So I heard a lot of opinions last week when I was here 2 weeks ago that were opinions, and everybody's got one. But in my part, I gave you paperwork to back up everything I'm saying. So it's not an opinion. It's what we were told or what was said.
I got a
Is-
question.
Okay.
So you think it's personal? You think we just discriminating you against you?
Well, I feel like we're not being totally treated equal with everybody else. Now, if you look it up in a dictionary, that's called discrimination.
I know what
Or
discrimination
equality
is.
or whatever.
Trust me, I know what
But yeah,
discrimination is.
it's a little different.
I'm a little confused too. I thought we were here to talk about ephes.
Well, I was wondering if.
Yeah,
you're talking
that's what we're
about
here to talk about,
Thomas's-
is ephes.
Dr. Thomas's development, is that what he's been
Yeah.
talking
Yes.
about this whole
So,
time?
yeah.
'Cause
I think
that
if
was
the,
not
if
clear.
if the discussion was about material, we will talk about material, construction materials. And we also want to tell you what our story has been in terms of material. So basically, I just wanted to cover three things. You have been talking to the architect, the construction company, and I just want to represent myself as an investor who puts up money for the investment. And I think you all owe us something to hear from us, how an investor look at these kinds of development. The second thing I just wanted to tell you is there are international codes. You follow the codes for electricity, plumbing, everything. There are codes for external surfaces. And I would recommend you following the international codes as opposed to, and why I think that's a better way to go. And thirdly, I would like to just tell us our experience in dealing with the city of Conway, and not to be mistaken for anything else, because I've heard questions whether we are trying to sue the city to so many different things. I just wanted to clear it up here that, it's just, so when you look at the goals, the main goal is to grow Conway for a good place for people to live in. We need more tax money and funding. This requires cooperation from small companies and large companies. And small investors, whichever city you go to, are the key for the development of that town. There is when you're an investor, there are a few things that we are faced with. We get an architect, we get the contractors, and they all price it. They tend to price it much higher because their percentage of income is based on the total cost. And we have to go to the bank asks for an appraisal. The total money loaned is, on an average, is about 80% of the price value. If you're doing a building which is to receive rent, then the rent is fixed. You cannot increase the cost of the building if it costs more, and that's one way the investor could run at a loss. And so costs for us, unlike what the topic has been for all these discussions before, especially on the other day, cost for us is very important. And the investor pays for the land, the building, the maintenance, the keep up of it. And so it's not like the architect or the construction person or the city paying for any of these things. The reason why I think it's better to follow the city international codes is basically what you all vote for today or any other day is not a recommendation. It's a rule that everyone has to follow if you're going to build in Conway. And so, for example, if you build something a strip mall versus a industrial area, storage building, offices, warehouses, you're going by one code, 50%, 51% masonry. Those are designed entirely different. So the building material has to be applied to different, what is the intention of the building is for. And there are different kinds of architectural designs. The traditional, where brick is commonly used. The modern buildings, they hardly use much of brick. Brick is more like an accent in those buildings. They use other products for it. So if the city says 51% brick, that limits other architectural design to be. The other thing would be the different location. Downtown Conway is going to look different from where we are, where Miley District is. So north of us, what we have is trailer homes. South of us, what we have is industrial building. Three more minutes. Is that what you said?
Yes, sir, 3 more minutes.
Okay. I'm sorry. You were asking me to stop. Sorry.
No.
Okay.
3 more minutes.
Yeah. So the other thing is, on east of us, it's a farm. The other side, what we see is basically painted concrete blocks. So the standards, what you're doing is 51% for a building out there, as opposed to the downtown has to be different. The city spends a lot of marketing money into bringing in business. So if we kind of have a restrictive building codes, what you're going to see is more people not build it here. So for example, there was a recent episode where a company came in, did not like the design and walked away from it. Time doesn't permit me to go into the details of it. So when you make the laws complex, it's difficult to enforce. That leads to people being treated differently. And that is one of the complaints that we have had right from the beginning. So basically our story, even before we started building it, we applied for replatting of the property in the hotel. The chamber called everyone to vote against it. Where have you seen the chamber calling people to vote against it? Then Ronnie talked about the PUD. So basically when an investor comes in and there is too much restrictions in that, what usually happens is they just walk away. And there is a rumor that we were going to file a lawsuit. My life is so good. I don't want to go after the city. And what we want to do is focus on growth and what we can create. And so I just wanted to know that, let you know that we are basically not going to fight in a lawsuit. We had a bad experience. I just wanted you all to know that. And we are basically walking away. We are going to present the architectural design for this entertainment center. If you all agree, disapprove it, we will do it. There is already design and event center. If you all approve it, we will go ahead with it. But after that, we are just going to not have anything designed or planning to do anything more over there in that place.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. Council, any questions? Okay. James, are you handling the art part tonight?
Amanda will
All
be. So
right.
she's coming up to set up. So sort of the end of a, I guess, I don't know how many month-long process, but we have been working on a public art master plan. And so this is sort of the culminating moment tonight. So we've been working with Amanda Golden. She's from Designing Local. She flew in this morning from Columbus. And so just wanted to share sort of the overall vision of what this plan represents, sort of the ideas that we've come along with. So I'll just turn it over to Amanda.
Awesome. Thank you so much, James. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. I am delighted to finally be here in person. We have spent the last 10 or so months working via Zoom and Google Maps, which has been really helpful. But I told James when I walked in, I was really impressed and excited about all of the really beautiful architecture that you guys have. You can see a lot on Google Street View, but you can't really see all of it. I was impressed with the amount of buildings that are still intact and the quality of the architecture. So has nothing to do with this plan, but I just wanted to say that. So tonight I want to talk a little bit about what we heard from the community and what their vision for the future is. Talk a little bit about what strategies we're going to be providing you to help guide decision-making in the future. We want to talk about how to really grow and run the program, as well as to think about some strategies that are going to help activate the program. So, on one hand, we're talking about the steps to make this thing rock and roll and from a city perspective. And on the other hand, we want to make sure that the community is actually seeing public art throughout the community. And we want to provide some opportunities to think about that. And then we do have some conceptual projects for future consideration. And I'm going to say it now, and I'll say it when I get to this point. The projects that are presented in the plan are not bound for implementation upon adoption of the plan, but they're just there for consideration and really to get excitement flowing. So after 10 months, we spent many conversations asking folks what it is that they want for their public art program in Conway. And the following vision statement is what is the outcome of that. We envision a Conway where citizens can easily access public art, building upon the existing works to create a catalog of varied pieces that tell inclusive and engaging stories. For your community, we heard over and over that storytelling and really making sure that Conway is a part of every installation, no matter what that is, and the story of Conway needs to be kind of at the heart of everything that you're doing. So the mission of the program will be to seek to form meaningful connections between people and public art. And then we've got some core values for you. We want to celebrate Conway with your collection. We want to tell stories that are unique to the history, natural setting, and the culture of Conway. We want to support artists through presenting a wide variety of meaningful public art from artists with diverse experience levels, inclusive of all people and all backgrounds. And then finally, we want your public art to really be about building community through building awareness and enthusiasm for place by connecting residents to one another through an investment in public art. So how are you going to make that vision a reality? Like I said earlier, there are two kind of buckets of information that I'm going to present tonight. And the first is really about thinking through how the government participates in bringing this program to life. And the first step is to further define the role of the Public Art Advisory Committee. They are currently called the Public Art Committee, the Public Art Board, and we are recommending a change to their name to be more direct in their role. We want the Public Art Advisory Committee to provide input and advise staff about the public art plan, which they have done for many meetings over the past year. We want them to provide input in developing the annual work plan, which I'll speak about in just a moment. We want them to provide input in establishing criteria and any eligibility standards for artists and projects that you're going to be putting out as a city. We want them to support staff and thinking about how the criteria for the award should be established. And then finally, we want to create just a blanket statement that just says, we want them to act principally in any advisory capacity that the city may ask them to do. The second is to really streamline the program management through the establishment of a staff-driven public art committee. You have a really talented staff of planners and parks folks, and we want to make sure to really use their skills and bring those really fantastic brains collectively together to help make decisions about public art. So we're recommending that a group of folks from planning, from parks, from public service, all come together to think about how public art might be integrated into some of the projects that they're managing within their department. And within that committee, we are recommending that an annual program update be completed regularly. This annual program update will help you as a council understand what projects are coming up, where the money for those projects is coming from. And that'll be a touch point year after year for you to say, okay, how many of these projects did you actually complete? Where are we in this process? And also it'll help you kind of look forward to the future. It also gives the public something to look forward to and see and get excited about as we hope that the annual program update will be presented to you during budget season. So that coordination committee, again, is going to be helping identify those public art projects and any opportunity for public art placement in any city projects that their departments are managing. That committee is tasked with understanding how the recommended funding opportunities might be applicable to their projects. And then they're going to be sharing that information with the Public Art Advisory Committee. From there, the committee is going to be providing input, asking questions, and strengthening that recommendation. And then they're going to be suggesting any other potential projects for inclusion within that update to then come to you for final approval. And fortunately for James, until the program grows so significantly that you have to make a new hire, James is going to be the public art manager. And within his current workload, he is going to manage all the release of the request for qualifications and proposals. He'll be sure to make all the implementation kind of schedules that are recommended from different artists.
I have a question.
Sure.
James, can you draw anything? Okay, moving forward.
It's about process. James is great at managing the process. That's what the artists are for. And then finally, he's going to be making sure that any opportunities are considered in all the funding mechanisms that we're providing. And then again, he's going to be maintaining those regular program updates to you all and the Public Art Advisory Committee, as well as the Interdepartmental Staff Coordination Committee. I know that that is a lot of stuff to kind of put in your mouth, a lot of kind of marble mouthy kind of, but it's really important that we made really straightforward titles for these different groups that are going to be managing the program. The next step is to update the public art ordinance with all the information that we hope you will be adopting in the plan. And then the fourth step is really about implementing public art policy. So as you know, you don't really have any policy right now that governs your program. So you'll see included in the plan and the appendix, there is a collection management policy which talks substantially about how to manage the collection. So, when you get a piece of art, what happens after that? That's not the end of its life. That's the very beginning of a piece of public art's life. And so you've got, whatever the lifespan is that you're setting for that piece to maintain it, make sure it's being cared for, make sure it's not damaged. There also may be instances where you have to remove a piece of public art from public view. And this policy outlines what that process is. It outlines what the artist's rights are, as well as how a community member could come to the coordination committee and say, hey, I find that this art is no longer appropriate, it's no longer suitable. There are a number of reasons that a community member could list, but it does outline a process and provides the information that you'll need to make that happen. It also provides a maintenance policy. Any artists that you are commissioning for any new works of art will be providing you with a maintenance plan that will then get integrated into your maintenance policy or your maintenance software. So your staff is able to perform any routine maintenance on these pieces. The artist, when they submit this maintenance plan, will also be letting you know if there are non-routine items that your staff can't complete on an everyday basis, and they'll tell you in that maintenance plan how often that act needs to be performed. And then finally, there are some mural guidelines for your consideration as well. And then the final step is to really think about how this program is going to be funded. You'll see in the document that we outline a number of opportunities for you to consider when it comes to funding opportunities. And some of the things that we're thinking about are considering a % for art in your public projects on a project-by-project basis. Many communities have this as a recommendation that goes with every public project. We are not recommending that at this time, but we are recommending that you consider it on a project-by-project basis so that when those projects do come up that would really be made so much better with a piece of public art at the center of the project, you are able to do that. We're also very interested in pursuing a voluntary public art contribution by private developers within the old Conway district. This would really be something that you wouldn't be forcing upon a private developer, but we would like to ask those developers to come before the staff committee. And we find that when people are asked if they will include public art by a committee, a group of folks, and they're kind of talking back and forth very casually, like, oh, a mural could go there, or wouldn't it be wonderful if an artist designed your shade structure that you're already paying for? That developer oftentimes is more likely to say yes to that than they are to just saying, no, I'm not including public art, moving on. The next recommendation that we have is to study your current impact fees for additional funding opportunities. You'll see in the plan there are a number of impact fees that we're suggesting that you examine to understand if there is any additional funding opportunities for public art. And then finally, we are suggesting that you explore diverting a portion of your building permit fees. So we know that those building permit fees support your staff and support your general fund. And so it would be interesting to understand what that baseline is to support that. And then anything above and beyond that would be dedicated to public art. Of course, that would change on an annual basis, and we understand that. But we're just trying to get creative and provide you a multifaceted approach to funding this program. So moving on to how to actually activate this program. And I think this is the exciting part. The steps before are the necessary part, and then these strategies are the exciting part. The first strategy that we're suggesting is to establish Conway's first cultural district. And here's some images as to kind of some of the things that we're considering as I read these off. But the first thing that we're recommending is to consider a creative incentive program through which the city could establish boundaries around the cultural district. And you could say, we are super interested in having arts and culture businesses locate within this district. The city could then provide an incentive to those businesses that could come in the form of rent subsidy. It could come in the form of helping white box some of these buildings. We feel that this would help property owners as well as new businesses that are arts focused come into Conway and really kind of build a lot of art synergy that you guys are looking to build. And I think it's already here, but given this extra opportunity could really begin to be uncovered, and you could really feel it as you're walking around downtown. We also want to build on the work that you all did with your African American historic context study. And we would love to support the markers that are going to be placed in some of the locations that were recommended in the study with some artwork. Our recommendation is to hire African American artists to help realize some of that public art to support those locations and really celebrate the contributions of African Americans to Conway in that way. The next recommendation is to think about what pedestrian scale placemaking projects could happen. So how do you begin to activate your alleyways, the backs of these buildings that quite frankly aren't that beautiful to look at, but when you think about hanging lights and creating seating and adding plants and doing murals on the backs of these alleys and perhaps even on the alley itself, things start to feel a little bit different. We're also very interested in a downtown sculpture tour. You have a number of locations in the right-of-way that the city currently owns that are really beautifully planted right now with landscaping. But should the city be interested, you could place plinths within those specific kind of bump out areas and place sculptures within those and have those rotate on an annual basis. We're also very interested in some pop-up food experiences and then also thinking about how to increase programming at Simon Park. Some images, like I said. And then here are the proposed boundaries for that cultural district. Again, you'll see in the document that we are recommending that you consider these boundaries, but that, of course, these can change with your feedback tonight. We'd be happy to make those changes. The next strategy is to launch the Conway Mural Grant Program. So in keeping with that cultural district and really seeking to build a lot of synergy within the downtown district, we would love for the city to consider, in partnership with community partners, how to subsidize mural making within downtown and within the cultural district. We're recommending that the city consider granting up to 25% of the cost of the mural on the private property. And then that property owner would grant an easement for the wall that the mural is placed on. And therefore, you would have more artwork throughout downtown. It'd be a really great opportunity to celebrate artists and support private property owners as well. And I should note here too, I started out the presentation talking about your historic fabric. It's really important to understand that when we're talking about murals, we are not talking about disrupting your wonderful buildings. You've got non-primary facades that really are great candidates for murals and should have murals on them and really would provide an opportunity for people to stay a little bit longer. Take some of those Instagram photos, grab a coffee, grab a sandwich or ice cream as they're sitting in front of this mural. I mean, imagine the social media candy that could come out of something like this. The next strategy is to invest in iconic public art and existing public spaces. So I think it's really easy for us to think about all the new things that you're going to be building and forget about all the things that already exist that are really great that could be supported and enhanced by an investment in public art. And so we're very interested in making sure that you're thinking about those locations. So we've selected some locations: the Roundabout at the 6th Street overpass, the Prince Street Roundabouts. Very interested to consider what a piece of public art might look like at the entrance to the community center, one at Simon Park. Again, these large privately owned walls throughout the city with these like large murals. I'm not talking, 1 story, 1 bay deep buildings. I'm talking about like the side of Target. Think about how substantial that would be. And I don't know where the Target is. I'll just go ahead and say that. But when I think about a big box store, that's what I'm thinking about. Like big walls that you would be driving past and you'd be like, I gotta go see that. And then of course, major trailheads and points where the trails branch. And here are some of those images, and these are a variety of price points, right? So I think oftentimes we feel a little kind of nervous about investing in public art because we don't know how much it costs. And it's important to remember that you can make a big impact with not so big of a budget. And things that do make a big impact can be small and surprising. I mean, the snail is not small, but he's smaller compared to the other 2 images that we've placed here. The 4th strategy is really about investing in public art on trails and in your parks. We know that Conway is known for your parks and your trails, and what better way to provide access for your residents to art than placing it in places where they are not seeking to consume arts and culture. We have some recommendations in the document where we're thinking about natural spaces and how you can add public art to those spaces. This is a really interesting exhibit here. This is all it's wood, of course, but it degrades over time and is not damaging to the environment around it. In fact, it degrades naturally. But we're also thinking about how public art can be placed along your paved trails. So what kinds of things might a cyclist be interested in seeing as they're moving at 10 to 12 miles an hour along the trail? What kind of things would be surprising and fun and make them smile as they are moving through Conway? The 5th strategy is about investing in your roadways. I love your shirts, and what better way to think about how public art can be placed in your roadways and in your transportation investments. So type 1, roundabout art. I wish that we would have put like a little sculpture in one of the corners of that shirt. It'd be so fabulous. Creative crosswalks. So on some of the roads that you can control that are not state-owned or county roads, you can really think about how an artist can design a creative crosswalk to walk across. Also notice that you have some really beautiful flowers on a lot of your poles. That could be enhanced by having artists actually participate in making some of those pieces of art that could hang on the banner post just like this. You could have a series of artists participate in developing those pieces on an annual basis. They come up and down with the seasons and really bring a lot of color, perhaps when live flowers would not. Down here on the left is a piece of roundabout art. On the top right, or excuse me, the top left is crosswalk. And then finally, really thinking about how tactical urbanism could be explored. So because you all are making such investments in your streetscapes and in your transportation systems, how can an artist help the community understand what improvements you're going to make? The sixth is to honor all of your local artists through establishing a local artist database to be utilized for public art projects. This database in no way endorses the artists that are going to be in your database, but honors their contribution to the community through providing your other residents who aren't making art with a list of artists who are making art. It would be very simple, but would be a really great way to celebrate those artists. How are we doing on time? We're good? Okay. And then I'm going to quickly go through these projects because I know you have questions. We have 8 projects/programs that we're recommending for consideration. Again, these projects and programs are not bound for implementation upon adoption, but they are only for inspiration. The first project is a nature walk. We're really thinking about how people can experience art when they are experiencing nature. We know that that connection to nature is something that people are really interested in building on after the pandemic. And art really supports deepening that connection. So you'll see in the plan there are a number of locations that we're recommending this happen. The second is the Roundabouts. And we want to be sure that you are placing substantial art within your roundabouts that match the scale of the roundabout itself. So placing a small piece is not necessarily a great idea because folks can't see it. And you want to make sure that people can see it. Carmel, Indiana has a really great program. There are a number of communities that have really wonderful pieces of public art in their roundabouts. I do outline in all these projects in the plan a budget for each of these recommendations. I strongly believe that between $200,000 and $250,000 per roundabout is what you need to make them work and make them be something that you can be proud of and photograph and that you would actually want to be in the roundabouts. The third is an artist design playground. As I have shared my excitement about this with James and anybody else who will listen, you have an artist design playground. The closest one is in Oklahoma City. It's the Gathering Place. And people come to Oklahoma City to go to that playground. They spend the weekend. They go to this amazing park. They have great food. Of course, it is an economic boon to that community. This is not the Gathering Place. This is in Brooklyn, designed by Mark Riegelman. I put his photo up here primarily because I want you to know that when we start talking about artist design play equipment, everybody gets a little bit of heartburn and is feeling a little bit of nervousness because of the liability that you are already taking in order to place playground equipment in parks. But this specific project was designed with Landscape Structures, which is who you likely purchase all of your playground equipment from. So an artist can be involved in the design process. And thinking about how imagination can be really built through your playground and through play in Conway is a really interesting and special opportunity that I don't think the region has. In fact, I know it doesn't. And I really believe that it would be a very large tourist attraction for you. The fourth project is a functional art program, which is where we're recommending that artists think about benches, light posts, parklets, and placing those all throughout the cultural district. It's really important to note that we want artists to design these. There are really great pieces that you can purchase, but those were not designed by an artist. We're super interested in making sure that synergy, again, is built in Conway, and an artist designing these functional pieces is going to be really fantastic. We're recommending that you allocate about $20,000 a year to this program, and businesses could say, hey, I would love to have a parklet outside of my business. I'm going to apply and say that I'll give you my parking space for X amount of time. I know that that also probably provides a little bit of heartburn to folks, but we often find that when a parklet is placed in front of an ice cream shop or a coffee shop, people are spending more time, spending more money, and that's what you want. And so at the end of the day, is the parking spot worth the exchange for the additional outdoor seating? Finally, there are 3 more. Project 5 is the Mural Festival. We're recommending that in marriage with the grant program that we're recommending at Strategy 2, that you host a mural festival. So once those private property owners apply, they'll say, we love it. We're gonna do this on a specific weekend. That way you could have bands, food trucks, and everything downtown, and these artists can be painting these murals on the same weekend, really creating an awesome event that we hope would become a signature event, especially if you're doing this year after year. I should also note on this specific location that, or excuse me, specific project, that we also recommend reconsidering after 5 years. So if you have exhausted all the walls downtown and the alleyways, expand it to another location in town, another commercial area, and really spread that festival around and the opportunity for those businesses to benefit from something like this. The next are the gateways. Today, when I drove into town, I made sure to get off on all three to make sure that something like this could be accomplished. This is called light rails in Birmingham. And these installations are really not that expensive when you think about the overall cost of the lighting. A project like this runs between $150,000 and $200,000. And you can really program these lights to be anything that you wanted. They're LED, they light the piers of the bridge, and they really provide something that's very interesting. Philadelphia does a really fantastic gateway program where they are doing lighting and also have artists who are placing murals on the side walls as well, which really creates even more interest. The seventh project is the Downtown Sculpture Tour. And we are suggesting the following corridors for that sculpture tour. And this is that portion that I talked to you earlier about where we said you had those leftover pieces of right-of-way that are really well landscaped, but we think sculptures would really add so much to that and really enhance that pedestrian experience when folks are walking around downtown. We're recommending that you pour 10 plinths, and that in the first year you would have to pay for the plinths, of course, and then you would pay artists a stipend to keep that piece for a year. They would bring their piece, they would install it, you would have it for a year. You understand that it would be for sale at any point. It could be sold. And then every year you would award one of the artists a purchase of that piece. And the community could help vote for the one that they love the most. There could be a ton of different things that you could kind of employ with a strategy like this. That's it, with 1 minute to spare.
All right. Council, any questions? Okay. All right. Let's take about 5 minutes, council, and come back in. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. We proceed each council with a word of prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to, please feel free to join us. Pray, Lord, for our decisions tonight. I pray they be in line with your will, and we pray for your leadership and guidance. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now call this meeting to order. Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Hawkins? Mr. Grimes? Miss Mel? Mr. Ledbetter? Miss Smith?
Here.
Mr. Jones? Miss Isby?
Here.
Okay, you should have received copies of the minutes from April 26, 2022. Any corrections, changes, or comments?
Make a motion for approval as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as submitted. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. First up, we have a public hearing to discuss municipal property owners multipurpose improvement district number 15. I'll now declare this public meeting open. If you approach the mic, would you please, if you're going to speak, would you please state your name and your address? What's your name, sir?
My name is James Walden at 1111 Main Street.
Where's your T-shirt?
I don't have my T-shirt today.
Have a seat.
They are bringing this forward at the request of the planning staff. It was a condition of their PUD approval. Essentially, for this subdivision, they are doing private streets, and as a maintenance mechanism for that, we required that they either set up a POA or an improvement district. Essentially, what those do is they create a mechanism to levy a proportional fee to all the property owners to pay for in advance in 20, 30 years the cost of repaving the street. So that's why this is being sought.
Anyone else like to speak for or against? Okay, we'll now declare this public meeting closed. Next, we have the community development portion of the program. Mr. Hawkins, turn this over to you, sir.
Get turned on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first part of this is an ordinance to establish the municipal property owners multipurpose improvement district number 15, and its ordinance 022.
Make a motion to waive 3 readings.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Ledbetter? Yes. Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Miss Isby?
Yes.
Miss Mel?
Aye.
Mr. Grimes? Miss Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Passes 7-0. Mr. Hawkins, the applicant has asked to remove this item. From
Item
council
2?
agenda. Yes, sir.
I'm through, sir.
All right. Last, we have the Public Service Committee, and I would like to ask the council let's not vote on this tonight. I would like to open it up for discussion because there have been some questions. Terry Kimbrough is here from Central Baptist College to answer any questions we might have. As you know, we, as a city, the bond issue passed, and so we're going to be opening a new soccer facility, which will leave the property that we currently have out at Centennial Park. We will not be playing soccer there anymore. We do have a need to keep some fields there, some area there for our youth softball practices, as well as I know that Miss Mel and Terry Coddington and some of us that went to Northwest Arkansas, if our trail goes through there, we'd like to have possibly a trailhead there and a cafe and a few things there too. So there is a need for the city to keep some property there. But Central Baptist, and Terry and I have been talking about this for quite some time, he and his staff, and I wanted to bring it before the council and get y'all's opinion on it and let Terry answer any questions that he has. And I know that CBC needs a place to play baseball. They do not have it, and it makes it tough to recruit. But they also have girls softball and several other teams too. But I'll ask Steve Ibbotson if you would also come up in case there's any questions, but Terry, we'll turn it over to you at this time, sir.
Well, I'm here to answer questions, so, but I can make a full presentation or preach a sermon, either one.
Is it a three-part sermon?
Yeah, it could be. First, we do need a place to play baseball. We drive to Burns Park to play, and the city's been kind enough for the past 2 seasons to let us practice on some of the city facilities, but there are no college-equipped facilities. We had a great relationship with Conway Christian for many years, but we outgrew each other. And so we've been driving to Burns Park. There's some safety issues with that, both transportation-wise and just being there, to be honest, at Burns Park. And we have a great relationship with the city at City of Colleges Park. For our softball, we lease the field, we rent the field, really, and we do some upkeep. There's some limitations there as far as when we have to get off the field, but we make it work. And same thing with Centennial Park for our soccer. And it's worked. Of course, if we had to, we'd move to the brand new soccer park, but we'd kind of like to have our own place and develop a Mustang complex. So we're looking at future tennis and then all outdoor sports. We have 16 sports, but not all of them, of course, are outdoor sports. So we have in fact, it's just an illustration. It's not a master plan because we've not expended any money to plan that. But I'll answer any questions, and we've talked to Steve.
Well, I think, Mr. Mayor, that's a great idea to kind of have some time to talk about it, because I know one of the things you and I talked about was, that's a pretty valuable asset for the city. And so this may be the perfect project for it. And I talked to President Kimbrough earlier, and it really is a great project. But is it the highest and best use for what we want? And so really having a chance for the council as a whole to just be able to kind of work it through and to make sure, maybe we want to sell half of it. I don't know. I mean, I have no other recommendation or ideas really. Only just want to be fair to everybody as we move forward. So I'll go ahead and officially move to hold it in committee, this in committee, because I also don't want us to take a whole bunch of time, because Central Baptist needs to make plans. So whatever we do, we need to do it quickly.
And because our contract with United, we have to give them 12 months notice, Steve, is that correct?
Okay.
Okay, all right. So that's a motion.
Yeah, that's a motion, just to hold this in committee so we can keep talking.
Okay, motion and a second to hold this in committee in order to help speed up the time. Any discussion?
I have a question. Where are we on construction of our new soccer facility?
I could answer that, but I can't answer that.
We have our first kickoff meeting with our architect, engineers, contractor, city staff, Thursday, I want to say 11 or 10:30 or 11 on that, and then the community center and aquatic center afterwards.
The estimated construction time on the soccer, that'll be done.
They're going to be, it'll go faster than that, but everybody's saying 18 months on both projects.
We don't need to get rid of anything until we have something else.
Yeah,
Correct.
Would be my opinion.
Yeah, we have a lot of youth sports out there.
Yeah, since we're under contract, we need to make sure we've got a place to move kids to, so. Yes, sir. Right at 50 acres.
I mean, I guess CBC actually is landlocked. I mean, you have nowhere else to kind of go on your footprint there.
We do have a lot of property south of the campus that right now the city parks over on our parking lot, or that green space. With that, we could fit a baseball field in there, but that's all. And we really want to develop a complex. And I don't know if it's the highest and best use even for us. It is a little wet. So it's going to take a lot of dirt work. 18 months delay for us. I mean, we need to be somewhere now, but 20 to 30 acres in the city of Conway, we can find it. We just can't pay for it.
Yeah.
And that's what's gonna be my question, if you had any idea, as far as your complex, how many acres you had in mind or envisioned?
50.
Now, wait a minute, you all didn't see what we saw.
Yeah, there's two, we have two illustrations that
Right.
encompasses all 50, and the second one puts it all in the center with space on one side for the, whatever they call that, rail park. I looked at the one in Rogers, it's beautiful. And the other side for practice fields, but we're flexible, except we need to move either all sports or none. I mean, we can't keep driving to Burns Park, but we got to do something.
You know, President Kimbrough, they're having an issue at Dickey Stevens Park down there. If you had some donors in your, you know, we could build a heck of a facility here, and maybe the Arkansas Travelers might come to town.
Look,
It's only $50 million.
That's all it is. That's what I'm saying. If he's got a few donors.
Steve, how many
you
acres
wanted
do
me
we
to
need?
split that? I mean, 'cause
How many acres do we need for the practice fields and the rail park? Yeah, does everybody know what I'm talking about when I talk about a rail park? I'll let Shelley explain it because I promise you she can do it better.
If you look at your drawing,
Throw you in the bus.
there's two drawings that they submitted. And we said, do one the way you would like to see it, and then do one where you concentrated everything in the center. The one that they would like to see leaves us, basically it's 2/3 of the property. And then we have a third left, which would borderline the trail, which is the western fields. And that would give you enough room in there for something like the rail yard and some practice fields. If you look at, and you kept it all in the center, you'd still do rail yard on one side, and then you could do practice fields in the rest of it. You know, everybody wants a practice field when the leagues are going, but when the leagues aren't going, then they're, so it's just kind of timing.
I mean, I would love to see CBC here in town playing sports instead of going to North Little Rock to do so. So, I mean, that's kind of my thought and the direction I'd like to see go if we can work out something. That's how I feel about it.
CPC is a part of our fabric in Conway. They've been here a long time, and absolutely. Our
Shelley,
biggest kicker for us, Dr. Kimbrough, or President Kimbrough, sorry.
Please, Terry, is,
I'm trying to be professional.
know.
Is we do have youth sports that we have to continue on, and we do have our contract with United. Of course, that can be changed with our timeline. Once we get a timeline established, then we will let United know. But in the interim, we still got to have a place for the kids to play. So,
Sure.
Well, I mean, this will take us 18 months to build a flat soccer park. It'll probably take you all 5 years to build this. So, I mean, we can do these simultaneously. If we decide this is what we want to do with it, we can sign the lease as 12 or 18 months is winding out, and y'all can ramp up what you need to do, so it can coincide.
And
Okay.
the baseball is the priority. I can't say that we would be building all this. I mean,
Yeah.
I do dream big, but,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
we have a home for the others, yes.
yeah.
The soccer field should be quicker, yes. If Mother Nature, since it's all dirt work.
Are you gonna have Shelley tell us what?
What a
the
real.
Conway Bicycle Queen.
No, no. Though I did ride 18 miles last night, it was hot. What it is it's a lot of different, what you call them, apparatus and things that are set up for different skill levels. So it's sort of like low scale mountain bike riding. So you get to do some fun things. And it goes around a track. And so you follow it around. So it's contained. You know, it would be defined, but it has everything from platforms to things you go through. So it's a little more than the pump track that's out at Pompey Park. So it's a little more elaborate. Might be a way to incorporate some public art. Give a nod to our public art out there. But so having that where the trailhead for, that continuation of the Kinley Trail will make it a much easier ride. There's so many riders that go out to the airport and past the airport, right? And then, coming back, a lot of us will ride on Dave Ward Drive, which is not the funnest thing to ride your bike on, coming back. And it'll go under, I think it's planned to go under Dave Ward Drive. And so that'd be a great place for a trailhead where people who like to ride south, go around Mayflower, go out, can do that, can leave from there, or can park there and then come into Conway. So I think there's a lot of potential. But yeah, I think you can see pictures of the one in Rogers.
Yeah.
Because and Bart mentioned it, and this is no lie. We went on a trail that was pretty remote. I mean, there was nothing else there, and there was a coffee shop that was packed. And the only way you can get there is on a bike or walking.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have
was
believed
packed.
it. I would not have believed it if I hadn't. So him mentioning having a coffee shop or a little cafe or something out there could help with concessions. Could really be a cool trailhead. I guess is probably the
They
best way
ran
to
cinnamon
put it.
rolls early.
They did. And they had bathrooms. That's the other thing, Steve. There were bathrooms there too.
I got one other question. This is just, I'm sure somebody else out there wants to ask it. When y'all are not using the field, will y'all let other people use it, like for practice and everything?
If it's ours,
Yeah.
if we spend 1.6 million on, which is what the baseball turf field is.
So y'all gonna have.
I wouldn't
you're not
say
gonna have-
let people
you're not
use
gonna
it.
have- Y'all not gonna have natural grass? Y'all gonna have
No,
turf?
no,
Oh, okay.
what we're planning is turf because of the maintenance and it's gonna take a lot of dirt, a lot of dirt. And we've only looked because it's not ours. So we kind of just, we have been out there. We may have hopped over the gate, but we're not the only ones.
Is there a gate out there? I didn't know there was a gate out there.
There is a gate. So we've just dreamed about this and put some dollar figures, and, our coach is well, he's not here, but he would speak to that. So we would love to make it obviously available to the community with restrictions,
And
of course.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And there's a few questions we'll have to clear up Mr. Finkenbinder and things like that. And just to see what all this entails and what the possibilities are.
Sure.
But we had a motion and a second to table this. Any other further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Terry. Passes 7-0. Let's see, council, that's all we have tonight. I would like to ask you to suspend the rules so I could just run one other thing by you for discussion. I have to ask the police chief to come in tonight. Won't take but a few minutes.
So, second?
Have most and second suspend the rules to let the police chief speak. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. I'll give you a quick highlight. The Pierce Heating and Air property next door to Conway PD is for sale. After many years in business, they've gone out of business. Hope they enjoy their retirement. Great people. The original asking price was much more than the city could give. It was well above what the appraisal price was. Felicia, the appraisal price was $240. The appraisal price came back at $240. They wanted well above that. So we just pulled back from it. Didn't bring it before the council, but since then, he called back and said he would take $275, I think, plus closing. But also, I think Jamie also told him that we would probably want to get a second appraisal before we bid off anything like that. Is that? Right. 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 Is he going to pay for that appraisal? He's not wanting us to pay for it. Is that correct? Okay. Yeah. So that's what the council, I was just going to get the police chief to explain what he would do with the building. But I know historically, we only go with the appraised price. And I don't have a problem staying with that, but I wanted to bring it up to y'all and let the chief just kind of tell you what his thoughts were on the building. But, Chief, I may have wasted your time if the council pretty much feels like we need to just, let Mr. Pierce get another appraisal and see where that goes. Okay. All right, go ahead, Chief. Since I made you come to town, just go ahead.
So this building is immediately southeast to our police department. It joins us there, and quite honestly, right now at the police department, we're out of room. When we built the building, we moved into it, there was a section on the top floor, the far south end, about a quarter of that top floor, maybe a little bit less, that we had left for expansion. Since that point, half of that has been used, been renovated for our narcotics division. The other half is all storage, our record storage, things that we have to keep over the years. Earlier in the year, you guys allowed us to hire an additional person for our FOI. That person is housed in a storage closet. We're just out of room there. This would allow us to do a number of different things depending on what we wanted to do. We could potentially use it for storage of those records, which would allow us to finish out the top floor of our building, add as many as 10 or 12 cubicles up there that would let us expand through the years. You also know that we've started our own light duty maintenance. Things that we need to store there would be great. Additionally, the front of that is about 600 square foot of office space. We have this co-responder grant that we're working toward. We are going to have additional places for these people to work out of. We've been trying to figure out exactly how we're going to do that. That would allow us to be able to do that as well. You all know that as a department and as a city, we're only going to continue growing. The fact that this is adjacent to us, I think is just, it's something that if we don't do now, we're going to regret in the future. That's my estimate anyway.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the chief?
Renovations need to be done?
So we would be able to use it the way it is for now. We really wouldn't want to invest a lot of money into it in case we needed to do something different with it in the future. I'm not sure if we would need to run fiber or something to it for our computers, but for the most part, we would be able to utilize it as it is. The outside's red. We might have to paint the outside so we don't look like the fire department. But other than that, I think there's not a whole lot.
Go ahead and just hit them with a double shot tonight. Why don't you tell them a little bit about the range?
Okay. So I wasn't really prepared for this one, but I'll as you know, where our range is, off of Sturgis Road, there has been a new apartment complex that is just to the kind of the northwest of it. And we've had some issues with bullets escaping the range, landing on someone else's property. So we shut the range down almost 2 months ago.
Yes.
And we have been looking into different options as to what we need to do for the future. As you know, that's our training center. That's important to us, and that's where our range has been. So our options really are, A, move our range to another place, or B, build it to where we don't have that problem anymore. And as you can guess, neither one of those options are cheap. We're pretty much limited on land to where we can go. We can move out into the county somewhere, but you know as well as I do, things are going to grow up. My belief is that whatever we do, we need to make sure that we are good 20 years from now and that we're not looking at this exact same thing in 20 years because it is expensive. We are looking into some different vendors that would supply different things, but it's going to be a process and it's not going to be cheap. So that's that.
How many acres is?
What is not going to be cheap?
Yeah, because
So different things that we have looked at are ranging in price. One estimate we got was about $670,000. And I'm not sure that would be the extent of everything that we would need.
what are y'all gonna do in the meantime? I mean, are you
So
still
in the
using that
meantime,
facility?
honestly, we're juggling. We're
what I was
lucky
thinking.
enough that Bologna is allowing us to use their range some. That really does turn into a fiasco in trying to schedule around everybody else. And not just for our officers, which, you know, we have to continually qualify and things like that, but we also have our SWAT team that train constantly. So making all that work has been a project, but it is what we have to do right now. We would really like to see everything stay in one place at our training center where we've invested so much money already. But that is one of the options.
Can we not put berms around it or anything like that, that we could?
And by doing things like that, we can greatly reduce the chance of something getting out. But unless you've got a top on it, saying 100% that nothing is going to get out is really not something you can say. Well, what we have kicked around, and we're still on the very beginning of this, is enclosing the top and the back with a bullet trap. We're going to take the berm, which sits behind the targets, move it in closer, which would keep things from coming out of the top there. Building up the berm on the right-hand side too, and then potentially also building a wall at the top of the berm, and that can be anything from concrete to wood filled with sand, to again stop anything from coming over the top of it.
I think it's more conducive to maybe do some renovations to what we have than to try to move it somewhere else possibly. I mean, since we already have the land, we have, you know, it's just a matter of putting some money in it.
Sure.
It's my thought, but
I don't know the total acreage of the training facility.
It's police and fire shared with both of them. Yeah, I'm not real sure, Dave. I'll get you an answer on that. I used to know.
It is.
and I guess you have guidelines that they have to train so many hours, and so.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we've invested out there. We have a range house out there already. We've got a nice range. We've got a turning target system that we've invested money into. So we've got those things in place already, but unfortunately, something has come up and we're going to have to adapt and figure it out.
So do other departments come and train there too?
So
Or do we open, I'm just.
they were. We did have other departments that were coming in and using the range, not on a consistent basis, but they did.
So how can we move forward if we renovate what we have?
So we are looking into getting somebody to come in, give us a total price. Like I said, we've been looking at different options up to this point, trying to figure out what is the best way to spend our money and what is going to be the best solution for our long-term future. We've come to the decision on our end anyway that we believe renovating where we're at is the way to go. So that means at this point, now we need to bring some people in, get some different ideas from different vendors, and see exactly what that's going to cost.
So it sounds like you just answered this question, but y'all determined that this is even 20, 30 years in the future, this is still where you need to be. We won't be boxed in by something else that happens in the next 20 years that make this investment obsolete then, will it?
So no, I don't believe so. If we enclose our range, you know, there's indoor ranges all over the country, right in the middle of cities. And if we move toward that type of structure, then I believe we should be good.
Yeah. And I would suggest y'all take a few trips, look at some other facilities. Because if the city's going to invest like this, I think it's important that y'all get the state of the art. I don't know, LA County, somebody, I don't know, somebody like that.
We can.
You can practice shooting cottonmouths out there.
We can, and we can find some other departments in cities that are going to have indoor ranges and go talk to them and figure out exactly. Like I said, we're on the very front end of this, just trying to figure out which direction we want to go, and if everybody believes that this is the direction we want to go, we can focus in on that and get more information to you guys.
Okay. Yeah, I think y'all all agree with the chief to research this and see it and then bring back. All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? 7-0. Thank you, chief, for coming in. Council, Felicia has this highlighted. We partner with Central Arkansas Workforce Center for a job fair tomorrow. Starts at 10 a.m. We have over 118 employers coming with 2,300 job openings. So if you know someone, it's going to be out at the Expo Center. So if you know someone that's looking for a job tomorrow, that would be the place to be. Sorry. Yeah. You were talking about, the chief was talking about the berm. Ledbetter, do you remember when Roden couldn't mow the berm and he asked us to burn it off? And we took Roden out there with us. So I just took a box of matches, threw a match out there, and it just woof, and old Roden, he liked that and run away. Anyway, council, that's all we have. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.